yeah. It's funny where as far reaching as we can all be as humans,
Yeah,
it is really all actually small.
yeah,
The 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon always clicks in one way or
that's it.
another.
It's yeah, everybody's connected is somehow, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's
Hmm.
great to meet you. I'd like to begin our conversation with
Okay.
we look at the calendar, and 4 years ago in April, everything stopped on a dime. The world was entering a pandemic. How did you
Mm.
get through that time period, and how did it change you?
Oh, right. Very good. Very good question. So what I remember in terms of the business, what we did, now I would say the advantage was I like to say we were on Zoom before it got cool.
Yeah.
Because I have been working with clients, so helping them out with either their business English, their business communication, sort of in an international context, which is often in English, helping them go into the American market, etc. Been doing that since 2015, and it's always been virtually. So
Wow.
it didn't change anything for us in terms of how we worked. We didn't have to shut down. On the contrary, we got a lot more business because people were stuck at home. They were looking to be connected with other people. We had a club, a conversation club, which was people from all over the world where they come and they connect and they practice their English. And so that was really exciting actually because it gave them the opportunity to say, hey, what are you guys doing in Brazil? What are you guys doing in Italy? How's it going over in Vietnam? And really having that shared experience, in fact, being able to actually share, wow, we're all in this crazy event. We don't understand what's happening, but we can share it with people all around the world. And so that was actually, I would say, one of the nice aspects. If we're trying to find something positive, that was really interesting. Of course, it meant for me, I was stuck in my apartment. What can we do to try to, make people cheer people up, bring a little bit of joy into the world? And what we did was we created I think we called it like the English festival or something like that. We said, hey, every day, as long as we're in lockdown here in France, we are going to, every day at 6 p.m., we're going to get together and we're going to do something fun. We're going to do karaoke in English. I'm going to read a story to you. We'll read a poem together. Just something to say, hey, a little light in this crazy time. We're stuck at home. What can we do to make of it? And that's kind of what we did to get through it. And business, I would say it slowed down because people were panicking and they didn't have the bandwidth to focus on English lessons or, going into a different, it was like, all right, I'm not going into the US right now, clearly. So that's just, we said, well, you know what? It is what it is. What can we do to make it a little better for people?
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis.
Mm,
If I was to put you in front of a bunch of third graders and it's career day, and one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer
yeah.
that child?
All right. So, oh, that's a tough one. I would say, you know what? I help European entrepreneurs and businesses to come and do business in the US. So, like, your parents, they go to work and they make money and they do deals. I help Europeans come into America and to do that with Americans.
So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
Oh, okay. Well, I wanted to be in the third grade. I wanted to be a singer in musicals. I love Phantom of the Opera, Les Miserables. It's actually that's one of the reasons why I live in France today, is because when I was a kid, I was just obsessed, well, like obsessed with Phantom of the Opera, which happens in Paris. Les Miserables also is set in Paris, and I was like, I want to go to Paris. I want to go to France, and so I wanted to be a star on Broadway.
Okay. Okay. So, did you pursue any of that? I mean, I guess take me back to your
Yeah,
childhood. Where were you born and
yeah.
raised, and how did you evolve into this place you're at now?
Right. It's like, how did you get from Mississippi to France? So I was born in a little town that no one's ever heard of called Pascagoula, Mississippi,
Okay.
which is the only claim to fame. Pascagoula, there's two claims to fame. There was an alien abduction in the 60s or the 70s. You look it up, Pascagoula alien, you'll find tons of information. That's the local legend.
Okay.
And Jimmy Buffett is from Pascagoula. So the
Wow.
singer, yeah. So That's where I'm from.
Okay.
And but it's a small town in Mississippi. It's on the coast, the Gulf Coast. So it's quite industrial, nothing particularly special about it. And I was always, even when I get a kid, a teenager, I was like, I'm not going to stay here. I love my family. They're great, but I don't want to live in Pascagoula, Mississippi all my life. And, and I think it was really just because I was so into Phantom of the Opera. I've always loved different cultures, learning different languages, things like that. And in high school, we had the choice between German, Spanish, and French. French was, it's Paris. It's more glamorous. It's croissants and baguettes and things like that. So I took French, did a study abroad program when I was at university. And after that year, I said, you know what? A year's good, but it's not enough. I want to stay a little more in France. Went back to the US, then it came back to France to do my master's degree. It was here in Grenoble. Then I met my French, now ex-husband, but we got married, so I stayed, and then we got divorced, and I decided I was really happy here. And I've been here for 20 years now.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. What do you like the best about living there?
So I like the mountains, first of all. I mean, we're in the like literally Grenoble is in the valley of three different mountain chains of the French Alps. So it's absolutely beautiful. And I feel like Grenoble is very similar to maybe like Denver or Boulder in Colorado in the sense that it's very outdoorsy. People are always out doing sports. It's, like when you're going to go and hang out with your friends, you go and you walk up a mountain. So it's that kind of lifestyle. And I really like that.
So, talk to me a little bit about who's been an inspiration or a hero for you in your life to do these things, to move
Mm.
to Europe and to do all of these things that you've done.
Yeah. So I think inspirations, I don't know, I feel like what I like, for example, Josephine Baker. It's not like a personal, I don't have any kind of personal connection, but I'm like, you know what? It was the 1920s. She was a black woman. We know what it was like back then for people of color. And she managed to come over here to France and become a star. Like French people loved her.
Yeah.
And just recently they buried her in the Pantheon, which is where they bury Marie Curie, all of the, you know, big names from French history. But if you get in, it means you're something.
Yeah.
And she was recently, they moved her remains into there. And so, for me, I'm like, wow, that's another American woman who came over here, loved France, became part of the culture, participated in the French Resistance, all of that. And so I find that that's really an inspiration. Now, I have no aspirations to go and dance in a banana skirt or anything like that. But I feel like, you know, seeing someone like that do what she did is a real inspiration.
Yeah. So, of everybody alive on the planet right now, if you can meet one person that you find fascinating, who would that be?
So I think it would be, does it have to be an alive person or can it be a dead
We can open
person?
it up to ghosts. We're fine.
Okay, all right. Let's have a seance with Ernest Hemingway in this
Okay.
case.
Yeah.
I did my master's thesis on Ernest Hemingway and how, his portrayal of France versus Spain in his work. And I just find that even though I think now learning about him and finding out that he's quite, misogynistic and I'm probably pretty sure I would hate him.
Yeah.
But I really admire his work and I think he would be a very interesting person to talk to just because he had experienced so much. And then also just because that period of Paris in the 1920s, I feel like I'm like, man, I missed something.
Yeah. 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 Well, Kansas City was called Paris of the Plains for a while
Okay.
when Prohibition was going on.
Yeah.
Like, we were the one town that literally had live entertainment going longer than anybody on the planet because we were
Oh,
open
right.
during Prohibition. So when
Oh, right.
COVID
Wow.
happened, yeah, we had a pretty good track record. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so let me ask you this. What is
Yeah.
your motivation every day to wake up, to do your work, to evolve as a human? What is that for
Mm.
you?
So I think there's two things. The first thing is, so my work is helping, like I said, European entrepreneurs, startups, small companies to be able to come into the US and to do business with Americans for a couple of reasons. The first reason is, if we're just honest, in the US, the budgets are bigger, the market is bigger, there's just more economic potential generally in the US. In terms of mindset, Americans tend to be less risk averse, to take more chances on people. They're more concerned about, what are you doing now versus what school did you go to? What diploma do you have? What's your history? Whereas in Europe, what I see is that people are, they're very cautious before they will take any risk or make any investments, et cetera, which means that for a lot of startups, for example, who are doing these very innovative things, it's sometimes really hard and really slow for them to get off the ground, because in order to get an investor or a client, they want to see that you've already got an investor or a client. And so really saying, you know what, you're doing something that is absolutely excellent. In Europe, I feel like they're very strong in terms of things like scientific excellence, technical, anything technical. They've just really got that strong culture. And taking that and say, you guys are excellent at what you do. Let's take you over to a market where people see that, where they're willing to take a risk on you, where they're willing to invest in you and help you to be able to grow what you're doing so that you can, scale up, make that impact that you want to be able to make, because you're trying to, I don't know, solve cancer with artificial intelligence or things like that. So it's really, that's I would say, the first thing. Like I said, I love different cultures, putting different cultures together. And I'm like, I want to be this bridge between Europe and the US.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, I see entrepreneurship as also sort of a means of personal development and improving yourself, becoming better, because you have to do so many things and you have to manage so many things, and things are not always going to go the way that you want. And so you really have to build up, how do I manage myself? How do I manage my time, my energy, my resilience? How do I make decisions? And so all of that is, for me, I think that the act of, having your own business and running it in the day-to-day life and thinking about the strategy, et cetera, is also a means of improving myself as a human being.
So you have to lead your clients in the right direction and give out
Mm.
good advice. What's the best advice that you've ever gotten?
Mm. I would say the best advice I have ever gotten is to get help, in fact, in doing things. I think that a lot of times we like to think, no, I'll just go and I'll read I'll watch some YouTube videos, and I'll read some articles and read a book, and then I'll be able to figure it out myself. And that, you just lose a lot of time and energy, and you can go down the wrong direction, and you end up losing more time, getting discouraged. And I think that's why, since 2018, I've been working with a business coach. We meet every month for, what is that, nearly 6 years now. I'm not always, but I do regularly take training, and I identify what is my weak spot and then who can help me with that. An example, just earlier today, I realized that I'm just not comfortable with the whole closing aspect of when you talk to somebody and you have to kind of get them off the fence to decide to work with you. And so I said, you know what? I need to improve that skill. And so I'm working with a guy who's training me on closing. And we just had our session earlier today, because I'm like, you know what? I gotta fix this.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's knowing when you have a weakness, and not saying, oh, I'm just no good at, I'm not a salesperson. I don't like selling. It's ugh. Saying, all right, I have to learn how to do this.
Yep.
Who can help me? And then
Yeah.
going and find that person.
So of all of the things that you've done, all the miles you've traveled and all of the things that you've done professionally, what are you the proudest of?
I think it's just being here, in fact, being where I'm at today. Because if I look at it, I mean, you think, all right, somebody, this little girl from small town in Mississippi, where it's, people kind of tend to stay there, or they stay kind of in the area. They might go to work at the shipyard or the hospital or at Exxon, or the three big employers there. Um, they don't really go abroad, and so I feel like having started out when I was a kid saying, like, you know what, I want to go live in I don't live in Paris. I don't want to live in Paris now that I discovered what it's really like in Paris. It's lovely to visit, wouldn't want to live there. But I think just the fact of having had that kind of vague idea when I was a kid, and now saying, like, you know what, I'm living in France and I have a business in France. And I mean, I still go when I go to Paris, and I go in front of the opera house in Paris, which was, plays a key role in the Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
I still get goosebumps, like even 20 years after being here.
So let me ask you this. If you have a dream tonight, you run into
Mm,
the 18-year-old version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life so far. What
yeah.
advice would you give that young version of you?
I would say don't wait so long to do something that you want to do. And the reason I say that is, I came to France, I finished my master's degree, started working at the Chamber of Commerce doing, English training for companies and professionals, and kind of started thinking about maybe I can do this on my own. Maybe about 8 years after starting work, et cetera. But then I continued working as an employee for 4 years because I was too afraid to actually set up my own company. I was like, what if I don't have clients? I don't know how to do this. I'm not an entrepreneur. I just want to, like, have a job and a salary and things like that. And so I think that one of the books that really helped me kind of work through that slowly but surely was Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, which I think it's by Susan Jeffers, if I'm not mistaken. But I would say, if I would go back and say to my younger self, you're going to have things that you want to do that are going to scare you. Just go for it, because what's the worst that can happen? It's not going to work, and you'll find something else. You'll find another way. And so I think it would be that, to not wait and think and hesitate for so long, to do a little bit of planning. You don't want to jump into things blindly, but to say, you go out, do a little bit of thinking, and then just go and do it,
Yeah.
and you'll do it.
Absolutely.
Mm.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. There's all these different people in your life, family, friends, clients,
Mm,
but you run the show. What's your
right.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, right. Good
Yeah.
question. I think I like to think I know what I'm doing. But at the same time, I'm always feeling like, do I know what I'm doing? I think it's imposter syndrome, that kind of feeling of there's always someone who seems to have one more, credential than me, or 5 more years of experience, or something that I don't have. So I would say that my perception of me is probably, I'm trying, doing the best I can, but probably not seeing all of the value that I have and that I bring through my experience, through the work that I do with the clients, et cetera. I mean, what an example is when I talk to clients and they say, like, oh wow, we work together, and it's really that, like, that changed my life and this totally changed my business. I'm always like, oh, really? Wow. Which it shouldn't be a surprise because it happens pretty regularly. But I feel like my perception is I'm still trying to figure it all out, even though I have a lot figured out. I've been doing this for since 2015 now. And like I said, a lot of thinking and reflecting and developing along the way. But I think that's my perception, is this: I know what I'm doing, but
Yeah.
I don't always feel like I know what I'm doing.
Right. Right. So let me ask you this. If anyone out there wants to hire you, learn more about you, reach out, any of the good business, where do they go?
So they can find me on LinkedIn. They just look up Christina Rebuffet-Broadus. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one,
Yeah.
and I'm very quite active on LinkedIn. I post most days, so pretty, like, 5 or 6 days. I'm on LinkedIn sharing advice, tips, strategies for doing business with Americans going into the U.S. market. They can look me up on YouTube. I've got YouTube videos and a podcast over there, or just my website, ChristinaRebuffet.com.
Excellent. Christina, this has been wonderful. What a refreshing story. Thank you for opening up. Thank you for taking time out today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure, Joe.
Absolutely. Best of luck.